Fortunately for me, I was going to have to go to San Francisco for a meeting. I was going to be a speaker at a conference with 4 other guys. And I hear at that point that there's going to be, you got to hear me, there's going to be an international, I laugh even as I say the words, an international convocation of Messianic Jews. An international, I wouldn't be caught dead there for anything. So when I got there, I was a little bit late. I go to register and make my way to the dorm, and I see this lady, she had palsy of one kind or another, having a hard time carrying a briefcase and her suitcase and going to where she's going. So we're going in the same direction, and I say, look, may I help you with your bag? She said, sure. So I carry her bag and my bag, and I introduce myself. I'm Stan, I'm from Bethesda, Maryland. I'm Lillian, I'm from Philadelphia. And then Lillian turns to me, she says, tell me, Stan, for how long have you been a believer? And I said, whoa, wait 1 minute. I'm not a believer. I'm an inquirer. I didn't know that you never tell a believer that you're an inquirer, because if you do, they'll say, let's sit down and talk. And that's exactly what happened. Lillian, there's a bench there, a concrete bench, and Lillian said, well, let's sit down and talk, okay? And I thought she was tired, so we sit down. And she said, do me a favor. I said, what? She said, would you take my Bible out of my briefcase? And I said, sure. Took out her Bible. She said, would you open to Exodus chapter 20? Great. Our side of the Bible? No problem. I know exactly where it is. Opened it up. She says, would you read what it says? Sure. I am the Lord your God, who delivered thee out of the land of Egypt. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. The first commandment. She said, close the Bible. Close the Bible and look at her. She said, tell me, Stan, who is your God? And I came out with the eloquent statement, huh? Well, what are you asking me? Well, who is it you worship? What is it you worship? What do you spend your time thinking about? What's at the center of your life? Is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob the God of our fathers? Is he your God, or are you following after false gods? I said, what are you talking about? She said, false gods like your wife, your children, your money, your business, your golf game. What is it you spend your time thinking about? And with each one of those questions, it was like an arrow going right into me, because I was spending all of my time thinking about these things, and God was nowhere in my thoughts. I rarely ever thought about God. I can't remember, except for God bless you. I can't remember even mentioning the name of God. What was going on, the turmoil that was going on inside of me was too great. And then it was time to go to bed. It must have been about 11:30. And finally I hear my roommate, Art, I hear him turning over. So I whisper, Art, are you awake? And he says, yeah, Stan, what's the matter? I said, would you do me a favor? He said, what? I said, would you please pray for me? I can't tell you what he prayed. I have no idea what he prayed. But all I knew is I was awake. The next morning the sun was shining. It was almost 7 o'clock. I'm hungry. It's time to go have breakfast. And I go into the cafeteria, and there are these people I'd had lunch and dinner with the day before. And so they wave at me and motion me to come over and crash the line. I did. Nobody complained. And we fill our trays and go and sit down at a table, put our trays down at a table. I put mine down. And by this time I know that you don't, just because you have your tray down, you don't pick up a knife and fork and start to eat. Somebody has to say something, you know. So I wait, and Shirley Moses Byrne, the wife of this guy that I've been talking to, turns to me and says, Stan, would you lead us in prayer? What do I know about prayer? So I recite the old Hebrew prayer, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Praise thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who bringeth forth bread from the earth. What happened was, when I finished my prayer, I said, in Jesus' name. And when I said that, it was like a volcano erupting, because I had already believed. I'd believed for a couple of weeks already, but I was counting the cost. I didn't want to believe. I did not want to believe. This is the last thing in the world that I ever wanted to believe. I kept saying to myself, yeah, but what about the Crusades? What about the Inquisition? What about the Holocaust? What about the pogroms? What about the anti-Semitism? What about the hatred we've experienced all of our life from Christians? What about that? And on the inside, I kept hearing, yes, those things happen, but that doesn't change the fact that Jesus is our Messiah.